Okay, so good evening, everybody. I'm Shruti Chaskar. On behalf of PiCA Student Council, welcomes our principal ma'am, members of SIBC, faculties, and all dear students on the occasion of World Toilet Day. Today, we all are gathered here to get some inspiring words and have a more clear vision and thoughts about the competition and existing situation around our society by architect Pratima Joshi, Executive Director of Shelter Associates. She has impacted over 370,000 people of Maharashtra directly and indirectly through community and individual household toilet facilitations and slum housing using a data driven, community centric, and multi stakeholder governance model. Under her leadership, Shelter Associates have received national and international honors such as HUDC Award, Best Practices in Sanitation, Times Network Digital Social Innovation Award, ISC FICC Awards 2018 for Innovative Use of Data, LPC Honor Award at UN Habitat, World Urban Forum 10. She is an Ashoka Fellow recipient of Aga Khan Scholarship and an expert in building design for developing countries. Through her master's in architecture from London-based Bartlett College of Architecture and Planning, and only Indian to receive Google Earth Hero Award. A small token of welcome for you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. That was
welcome. The agenda of today is to break taboos around toilet and make sanitation for all a global development priority. I would ask Harita to give a glimpse about Nirmal 2021 design competition.
Our country has faced an immense challenge in providing workable sanitation facility for the people despite the campaigns and efforts by successive governments. Provision of toilets for every household remains a distant dream in metropolitan and urban areas for a variety of reasons. Thus, MES Pillai College of Architecture, New Panvel, in association with SIBC, announces Nirmal 2021. It is an inter-college design competition to observe the World Toilet Day. The focus of the competition shall be on the Navi Mumbai and Panvel region. The theme of Nirmal 2021 is Sustainable Sanitation for Informal Settlements. The aim is to raise awareness about providing access to sanitation for all and exploring the role of architectural design in improving the quality, usability, and cultural image of such facilities. The participants should come up with a portfolio of maximum 6 pages, which would consist explanations of chosen site, design program, strategies, your drawings to communicate design proposals. The students can participate as an individual or in maximum group of 3. The first prize winner of this competition will be awarded with rupees 10,000 and a certificate. Second prize winner with rupees 6,000 and a certificate. Third prize winner with rupees 4,000 and a certificate. And Popular Choice Award of rupees 1,000 and a certificate will also be given. Last date of registration for the competition is 22nd November and last date of submission of the competition entries is 6th December. We hope to receive maximum number of registrations from everyone. You can go through our website for more details and can even contact Senate Student Council of PiCA for any doubts or queries. We would be happy to help.
Thank you, Harita, for giving a glimpse of the competition. Now I further request Pratima ma'am to take over from here.
So I would like to start by thanking Smita, madam, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. It's always a pleasure to talk to your fraternity I don't get that many opportunities. So whenever I get one, I just go for it and grab it. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here with all of you. And I hope this session will be useful for all of you, especially in view of the competition that's ongoing right now. Let me just start with sharing my screen so that we can make a start right away. All right. Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So I think the introduction was so warm, and a lot of our achievements over the years has been listed out so well that I just skipped the first few slides, which really was an introduction to the organization. But I would still like to say that this organization was founded in '93 by architects. Architects and planners who started out with this vision that we wanted to do something about poverty in the cities that we were living in. As architects, was there a way in which we could somehow use our skills to address the needs of the have-nots of the city? And as all of us know that the have-nots of the city, the percentage is rising. And it has been on the rise. I mean, we've been around for almost 3 decades now. We started in '93, so we've been around for 27, 28 years now. And we find that in especially large cities, the percentage of the poor, the urban poor, has been on the increase. And Maharashtra is one of the most urbanized states in the country. I think all of us have been seeing a rapid rise in slum communities in and around the places that either we are living or we are working in, or our institutes, colleges. I'm sure the awareness is now much higher than it used to be. And he really thought that, the kind of degraded areas in which these people lived, if I look at the city of Pune alone, I'm not even talking of Mumbai, which is really it's beyond the tipping point. But even in Pune, we are saying about 40% of the city's population is living in less than 10% of the land that is available. So you are, really cramming people into such dense settlements, and with very sporadic amenities that are being given to them. So way back, we decided that as architects, is there some way we could actually bring some kind of relief and meaningful interventions in their lives? And that's how the journey began. As I think Shruti very rightly mentioned, we have made some kind of an impact in the state. We have been working, as I said, our geographical area of work has been Maharashtra. We've been working in a few cities of Maharashtra, and prominently in Pune, Kolhapur, Thane, Navi Mumbai, Pimpri Chinchwad, Panvel, Sangli, Meerut. And we have worked on the issues of housing and sanitation. People ask me, why sanitation? Why not electricity? Why not water? Why not this? Why not that? And I said, there is a reason why we chose sanitation to focus on. And this reason really was the kind of data sets that we started gathering very early on, and which kind of gave us a deep insight into the issues that really plague the poor. So, we were these young architects in our late 20s when we started this journey. And we wanted to, of course, start with housing because we wanted to give them good houses. So the built environment was really the focus. But when we went into the slum settlements, and I'm talking about the Pune slum because that's where our journey really began. As we visited the slums and as we tried to gauge the situation on the ground, we realized that one of the major impeding stumbling blocks was there was no data. No data with the community or no data with the cities. And so it was very difficult to understand where were the gaps in the, in the delivery of very, very essential services that you and I take for granted, like water, We have piped water supply in our house. We have a toilet at home. We have electricity all the time. I mean, this is something that none of us even think of. And in slums, we found that, the fights around water, around usage of toilets, um, the electricity was sometimes borrowed. People were paying quite a big amount, to get maybe a single light bulb. So we said somewhere this data needs to be there. Otherwise, how will cities ever know what they should be providing? And that's where the data journey began. It was something that we were totally not prepared for when we started the journey, but became a very, very integral part of our work as the years went on. Today, a lot of people are talking about, harnessing technology. Data has become a big thing, rightly so. But when we started our data journey, we were well ahead of our times. And because we were also well ahead of our times, and it was the less trodden path, we also were very unpopular, especially with the government, because I would like you all to sort of go back. I mean, some of you may not even know, but in the late 90s, mobile technology was hardly popular. I didn't have a mobile phone, until a few years later. There was no Google Earth. I mean, all the smartphones and the applications that all of us are using now, without the thought, and so easily with such ease, all of this didn't exist at all. I mean, very few people even had computers. In the municipal corporation in Pune, I remember at that time in the late 90s, there was only one computer in the entire municipal corporation, and that was in the buildings department. So suddenly, there were these bunch of architects who were very keen to explore how they could leverage a technology like GIS to map poverty. And so a lot of people would turn around and say, what is GIS? What is it? What does it mean? I mean, geographic information systems were not even heard of at that point of time. And when we said, we should be mapping poverty, leveraging technology, it was met with a stoic silence, and very often the municipal corporation officers were, very defensive, or very hostile about, having to learn something, because it meant if we were to do something with technology, it would behove that they also learn that, isn't it? And because you are so used to using hard copies of everything, you want to see data on a piece of paper. Um, Otherwise, you're not comfortable, viewing data. I mean, we had such basic challenges to overcome. But anyway, we still pressed on. We said, no, we need to make sure that we build a whole data platform, which is going to be a good tool for governance. Of course, when we started doing that, we didn't know where it was going to go. But as we started, working with the first GIS software, which we got as an academic, license, we literally spent a year trying to, see how that could be tailored to map poverty. Today, what you see on the screen is that we have surveyed and mapped close to 3 lakh households in slums across Maharashtra. Today we can't think of doing anything without that kind of data. We have data which, all kinds of technology that we're leveraging, and everything under one roof. But that data has helped us make some very meaningful impact. And as Shruti mentioned, that we have directly and indirectly impacted close to 4 lakh people with sanitation. And directly, we have impacted over 24,000 families with a home toilet in slum. So this journey has been very exciting, because it was very well, sort of chalked out, logical kind of a journey. And this is where I like to sort of thank my, my background as an architect, because, we're very special people. We tend to make things, we like to bring things alive, I think. So when we started our data journey, we wanted the data to come alive. We were not happy to see spreadsheets. We were not happy to just see hard copies. We wanted that data to really speak to us. And that was a good investment that we made. Our one home, one toilet, which is still a work in progress, has been very popular across slums in cities that we've been working in. We've worked in 7 cities of Maharashtra with the one home, one toilet. And I just thought, let me just start with one testimonial from Lata Ratan Misar. She is from a community in Pune, and she says that, I have a young granddaughter who had to walk to a community toilet during late hours. I'm extremely grateful now that I have a toilet at home, because I don't need to be worrying about her safety. And her granddaughter feels very relieved because it has improved her menstrual hygiene. It has allowed her the freedom to eat and drink whenever she wants to, because our earlier surveys also indicated that very often adolescent girls and young women prefer to curtail their eating and drinking after 6 in the evening for sheer fear of having to step out in the dark if they needed to use the loo. So they tried their best not to visit the loo, and that affected their health in a way, because they just minimized the water intake, and they didn't eat after a certain time in the evening. So this has brought tremendous relief to thousands of families. And I'll just give a brief introduction to the model that we have followed, because one of our objectives is that, as people who are running this NGO, or people who are sort of raising grants to do this work, we don't want the person who's receiving something to feel that they are beneficiaries and they're getting a handout. You don't want to do that, because one of the things that you need to do very, very sensitively is to still ensure that the dignity of the person who is receiving a certain benefit is not compromised. And we've always believed as an organization that it's a joint effort. And the so-called beneficiaries, or the benefactors, all the other stakeholders, the more they come together, the more they interact, they really become partners in a process, which just leads to a much better environment for everyone. Because if you can reach out to the have-nots of your city and give them a reasonably good quality of life, the city is also benefiting from it, isn't it? Because a healthy community goes a long way in making healthy cities. And that kind of partnership spirit needs to be retained without really compromising on anyone's dignity. So whatever we've done it in that spirit. So we've never doled out anything to anyone. We've always said that just like everybody should be participating in the process that leads to a particular product, everybody should also be financially engaged in getting that, in achieving that product. So we have a three-pronged approach to anything that we do. So it can be housing, it can be water, it could be sanitation, anything. So like I earlier said, why sanitation? Sanitation simply because our data showed time and again that sanitation was the most neglected sector. While in Pune at that time, when we had done the survey, over 70% families had access to a home, water supply. People had, over 80% families had access to electricity, whether it was their own meter, whether it was borrowed, they at least had electricity. But barely 26-27% families had access to a home or a private toilet. Most of them were using community toilets, which were in various, stages of crumbling or disrepair, and the, the pressure on these community toilets was so high that people just were forced to defecate in the open in several instances. So sanitation, subsequently also when we started working in other cities, we realized our data continuously pointed out that sanitation was the most neglected. So we decided that, maybe we should really start focusing on sanitation. And that is why we started our sanitation journey almost 20 years ago. And we started with community toilets in the city of Pune. And we have a few successful models of community toilet. I'm not saying that we didn't do sort of good projects with community toilets, but as time went on, we realized that, really community toilets were just a stopgap solution. They could not be, a sustainable kind of a solution, if you know what I mean. I think all of us would agree across the table that none of us want to step out of the house if we have to use the toilet, right? If given a choice of having a very palatial, beautiful flat in a society, but with a rider that for the use of the toilet, you'll have to step out and maybe use the toilet across the street. Comparing that to a flat which was decent, not very luxurious, but which had a toilet at home, I'm sure 100% people will choose the second option, because all of us know that when you have young children, when you have old people, when you're sick and you need to keep running to the toilet, the last thing you want to do is step out of your house to use the toilet facility. I think all of us would agree on that. So it's the same, and it's true even for the poor, because in the nights we found that every time a woman needed to step out, if she did, and especially pregnant women, they found it horrifying to go and use a community toilet block. Very often they were closed during the night. If they had to go out even and defecate in the open or pee in the open, they would wake up some of the male members in the family and then go with them, which meant a disturbed sleep for everyone in the family. So we really thought about it, and we said, we really should now start moving towards a solution where you can give every home a toilet. And we started this one home, one toilet model way back in 2005, 2006 in the city of Sangli. So, as I said, we put data in place first. Then we also invest a lot in raising awareness around the issues of sanitation, health and hygiene issues, around lack of sanitation. And the third thing we believe is that, as I said earlier, that even when you're delivering a facility like that, it should be on a cost sharing model. So how did we go about it? I said we did data. So, we started with the GIS technologies in the late 90s, and we gradually also, integrated Google Earth, using it as a base map to superimpose our data. So that was the second technology. Then the next thing was, of course, mobile apps. That was one of the technology that we started leveraging a few years ago, as and when it became available. And then more recently, what we've done is we've migrated to open source tools, because we believe that whatever data that is created, it should be made available to a much wider community. We've had success in actually publishing this data on our website, so it's in the public domain. So that I would invite all of you to see our website and see the slum data part of it, because you'll see Panvel, you'll see Navi Mumbai, you'll see all the slums in Panvel and all the slums in Navi Mumbai, and you will be able to choose the queries, because we put out spatial data, and we've also put out a dashboard which gives you sort of statistical data. It will help you see what has been the penetration of home toilets in some of the slums. what existed prior to intervention and what happened after intervention. So I would invite you to also take a look at that. We believe that data should be co-created. I'm sure all of you, at some point or the other, as architects, we like to start a project with good, solid data on the ground, right? It should be data that we trust. Similarly, if you want your data to be used by governments or communities, then they should also trust that data, right? So we believe that we should involve them even in the data process. So in communities, wherever possible, we've been engaging with the youth, especially, and even of late, we work through a lot of community volunteers, and luckily, many of them are fairly tech savvy, and quite a few of them have smartphones. So they do a lot of data gathering and data collection. They get involved in that. And we get the urban local body to come and validate that data on the ground. Because if tomorrow we want them to use that data, they should feel confident that it is reliable, usable data. So this is the way we've been co-creating data. So mapping settlements, mapping infrastructure, carrying out a whole, a rapid household level survey. This is something, so we integrated it on the GIS systems. And as I said, we share this data with the urban local bodies because the primary intention of creating this data is that we want the cities to use it. We want the communities to be aware about it. And we want it to become a great governance tool. So, you'll see in some of these photographs, the one below shows the training sessions that we try and hold with the urban local body officers, right from the sanitary inspector to the engineers and ward officers, because if they know that this kind of data is there for them to access, it just makes life a lot easier. But they should know how to use it on the ground also. On the top left, you'll see that was the ex-municipal commissioner of Thane. When he came visiting one of our slums where we were doing a sanitation project, he was looking at the data sets and the infrastructure sets, and he was relating that to the project on the ground. So this is something that we have always encouraged. And communities also, as I said, field workers, we train them to gather this data. You can see all of them, even during COVID times, they're all wearing, having their proper protection PPE kits on, and they're doing data and they're using that data on the ground. I don't know how many of you are aware of this slum Panchashil Nagar, which is in Panvel. What you see on the left is the kind of situation that existed prior to our intervention. We had just 18% of that slum had household toilets. By the time we left that slum, 59% families had their household toilets. So can you see on the right, all those houses in pink are the ones, I think the numbers there are 201 families started having access to a home toilet. And if you look at the figure at the left, you'll find that before we started our intervention, 372 families were dependent on a community toilet block. So that pressure on the community toilet block tremendously reduced. And that is also important from the maintenance aspect of it. If there's too much of a pressure, it takes no time for community toilets. Within a few months, they'll start crumbling because of that kind of pressure. I just hope this film plays. Well, let me see this. I had sort of built in a, well, I don't think this is, let me just see if I can exit and play this film. Yeah. Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. I just hope it's playing. no, when I go into full screen, I don't think it works. So let us wait for the, yeah, okay. This is one of the largest slums in the city of Pimpri-Chinchwad. You know, all these houses in blue were using a community toilet block. This project took us nearly 2 years to complete. But by the end of it, can you see so many blues got converted into pink? And did you see a lot of lines that came alive? This particular settlement had no drainage network, and there was a lot of rampant open defecation happening around. Because you had community toilet blocks where the person to toilet ratio was like 1:100. So every seat, there were 100 people who were, who were to use it. Obviously, it was not possible. And so it led to a huge amount of open defecation. Today, from 1:100, that ratio has gone down to 1:31, which means that barely less than 5 families share one seat. So open defecation has completely stopped here. And, so this has been one of the success stories. And we are really talking about the slum, which has close to 2,450 families residing. So that's a large number of people. If you assume roughly about 5 members to a family, we're really talking about 10,000 people living in that settlement. And, so you can imagine the kind of impact it had. Similarly, I just want to say that data has a very, very huge role to play in determining the kind of actions we need to take. So when we do data, we also look at, okay, if there's a settlement, how many community toilet blocks are there? You can't assume that every community toilet block, or the CTB as we call it, has the same kind of pressure. We've noticed that in large slums that if there are 10 community toilet blocks, the pressure is varying across those 10. Some of them are highly under pressure. Some of them are not. So you want to see if there's a way in which you can redistribute that pressure. So this is something that we actually find out. So when we do our surveys, we ask the house, which we have numbered the community toilet blocks. So we ask the community, every family, which CTB they're using. It sometimes has something to do even with the cleanliness and the maintenance of it. It also has to do with how many people around the CTB have their own toilet. If they do, then there are fewer users. So there are lots of things, the status of the network, all of that has an impact on the kind of pressure that that a particular community toilet block might experience. Similarly, you need actionable data to understand the problems which are related to drainage network. So when we do the drainage mapping, we also see which are the problematic areas. And this kind of data becomes very critical for the municipal corporation, because if you see this particular map in this particular slum, all those lines which are in orange, they needed to be cleaned out because they were getting choked, they were blocked, and they didn't necessarily need to be replaced, but they needed real, efficient, thorough cleaning out. Some needed to be replaced because the lines were much narrower, and the volume of sewage that they would be carrying would be higher. So there is a lot of engineering inputs that also needs to be made by the municipal corporation, and so this is like micro level kind of planning. Similarly, if we also wanted to use data to target specifically a certain bracket of people, like some of our donors sometimes insisted that while we gave home toilets through their support, they would be happy if we could choose homes where there was a girl child under the age of 18, because that was their priority, to reach out to girl children between the age, from 0 to 18. So this is something that also could be targeted. So all those houses that you see with hatches were, toilets, houses with girl child under the age of 18. There were 1,020 in this particular settlement. So we systematically ensured that we, did make our selection even based on that kind of data. And everywhere, wherever we worked, in slums, sometimes there's only a partial drainage coverage. So then you can't suddenly give everybody a toilet. You need to phase it out, right? There might be a possibility of laying additional drainage network. So this particular settlement in Navi Mumbai is called Sainath Wadi. We worked in 2 phases. The first phase was, we worked with those houses where they had an access to a drainage network. And so we could immediately plug in a toilet. And in the second phase, we worked with those families where there was the potential of laying new networks, which the municipal corporation laid. So this is the cost sharing model that I was also talking about, where we got the municipal corporation to lay new drainage line wherever there was a possibility of doing that. And that sort of gave a larger number of people an opportunity to plug in a toilet in their house, which could be straight away connected to the city sewer network. So in phase 2, we targeted those families. So this, like that, over a period of 2 years, we had a fairly good coverage of, over 330 families had a toilet in phase 2 of the project. Similarly, when we're doing community mobilization, we also make sure that we rope in volunteers from the slum. So they are young girls and boys who are active, and we divide it in pockets of 100. So these people are, responsible for their pocket, as you can see it in color, and they make sure that they run intensive awareness programs in those pockets. So there's a whole bunch of monitoring that happens around that too. And I feel really happy to share that a lot of cities have linked their website to our website, so that data becomes available to a much wider audience. So if you open the homepage of Kolhapur Municipal Corporation, you will see Shelter Associates logo. And if you click on that, it goes directly to the data site of Kolhapur slum. And it's a citywide thing that sort of comes alive. So bringing data into public domain has been one of our challenges, and we're very happy that we've been able to do that with the support of all these people. And our donors have also been very happy, because when you start using data, you can also make sure that that data becomes available to the donor families who know where that support has gone. So if we have if a donor has supported, say, 100 toilets or 200 toilets, we tell them specifically which house that support has gone to. And if they are interested in coming and visiting that house and knowing more about it, they know exactly where to go, because it's already mapped, and they can see it on the map where it is. So this is what I meant, that data brings in a lot of transparency and accountability. And I always say it brings in a lot of comfort and confidence between all stakeholders. So just to give a broad level impact that we've had so far, in Pimpri-Chinchwad, which is one of the richest municipal corporations, not just of Maharashtra, but if you look at it countrywide, it had a very sorry state of affair when it came to their own sanitation. I was kind of horrified when I saw that Pimpri-Chinchwad had less than 9% of household toilet coverage in slums, and barely 33% of the slums had drainage network. And all these slums were off major networks. It's just that those networks had not penetrated into the settlement. Pune was the only city which had a lot of networks that existed in slums, but the municipal corporation was not aware of it. But the moment they became aware of it, they had a head start. And if you see the kind of shift we've had over the last 5 years since Swachh Bharat Abhiyan has been launched, and sanitation was prioritized by every city. In Pimpri-Chinchwad, from 8%, the toilet coverage has gone up to 58% across. And this is and we did 100% data for all slums in Pimpri-Chinchwad. Similarly, the drainage network has gone from 33% to 57%. Kolhapur networks available was barely 19%. It's gone up to 27%, but toilet coverage went from 23% to 56%, because Kolhapur is a city where we've also done a lot of septic tank toilets and done biogas toilets. And we've used other technologies also. And Pune, from actually, it used to be 26%, it has moved to 59%. So that's a pretty huge shift over the 5 years. And you'll see that investment by urban local bodies itself was close to about 47 crores across these cities. And what is very heartening is that all these toilets, you see, they're at, with different kinds of finishes, because we just gave people the material to build their toilet, but the cost of construction was completely borne by the families. So that's where the cost sharing model again applied. So the material was subsidized, and we just gave them basic cement, sand, pans, hardware, stuff like that. But you'll find that every toilet is finished differently because people invested in their own finishes as per their taste. So some of them really went all out and did it up really nicely. And some who didn't have so much of, didn't have the meal, did the bare minimum that would make it usable and workable. So this is how people have invested in it. Now, having said this, and since all of you are from Panvel, I thought it'll be nice for me to take you through this journey that we did with the Panvel Municipal Corporation. This is 2018-19 that I'm talking about. Just one sec. So Panvel has a very peculiar situation. Just one second. Yeah. Panvel has like 53 slums altogether, which you see over here. And in these 53 slums, you have 56 community toilet blocks. So we were doing our surveys, and we had restricted ourselves to only the community toilet blocks. And the city approached us and said, we really would like your help to survey all the public toilets that exist. Now, mind you, Panvel municipality was barely a 10 square kilometers municipality. And then suddenly one day it became 110 square kilometers municipal corporation. And when it suddenly scaled up more than 10 times, they did not have the wherewithals to deal with that, large geographical area that suddenly became part of their city. And they did not have the information. They were not, sure of what was the situation on the ground. And they were really, really struggling to make the kind of inputs that, was expected of the city. And public sanitation was one major area, gray area for them. So we said, okay, we will, this was the first time that we said, okay, we'll also include public toilet surveys, as part of our work. We found that there were 225 public toilet blocks across the city, which you see in green. And there were 10 public toilets which were attached to petrol pumps. All right. Now, availability. So there were certain parameters on which we looked at, what were the missing gaps. And one of the biggest missing gap was water. I'm sure at least some of you have had this experience that you go to a public toilet and there isn't, water. But here it was pretty horrifying that out of, the 200 and odd community public toilets that you had, in 244 of them, there was no water facility. There were only 12 toilets which had 24/7 water, and they were mostly the ones which were attached to the petrol pumps. Or you had varying water supply. You had either 2 to 6 hours, and that was only in three public toilets. You had 6 to 12 hours water coming only 9, less than 2 hours in 14, and bulk of it, 244, there was absolutely no water. So we looked at one of the parameters was electricity. There was no electricity in 219 public toilets after dark, which was again a very huge area of concern. And we were also surprised that something that was called a public toilet block, sometimes had, 2 to 4 seats, or 5 to 6 seats, or 7 to 9. They were, I mean, at least 7 to 9 seats is decent size, but 2 to 4 seats, there were 78. 5 to 6 seats, there were 78. So you had more than 150, public toilets who had, just anywhere between 2 to 6 seats. So obviously they did not have caretakers because there was no facility for a caretaker to stay there. And they were absolutely not maintained. And so you see the breakup of 10 and above were just 38. And there were 3 which were closed. And under construction, there were 3. So about out of the 225, you find that that's the kind of breakup. Most community toilets were in extremely poorly maintained state or barely usable. And some kind of insensitivity, I would say, in terms of the way they were constructed. Can you see that one on the left? That's a community toilet block in one of the communities, and what you see is the that row of jalis for women's toilet. Men would stand on that ledge and they could peep in. So women felt very scared to even use it because of the way it was constructed. So we looked at other parameters like how many were functional. How many? I mean, when we looked at community toilets, since you're doing community toilets, if out of 53 slums, only there are 30 slums which use community toilets. There are 18 slums, mind you, where there are no community toilets. And you have out of 53, there are 2 communities who are using only public toilets because they don't have a community toilet. And there are 3 slums where they use a combination of community toilet blocks and public toilet blocks. So we asked them, who is doing the cleaning if there's no water? So they've outsourced it to a company. And what this company does is, I mean, I don't blame them. They come with a water tanker every day, and just once a day they clean it. They go with a jet spray. They clean these public toilets and these community toilets, and then they leave. So maybe the person who's using it soon after it's being cleaned is okay, but the subsequent people find it unusable because the predecessing person doesn't have access to water to clean the mess. So this is a very, very strange way of going about any kind of maintenance. And if you go by the kind of SBM norms, they say that every kilometer you need to have your buffer analysis of 1 kilometer. You should have a public toilet. It more or less meets it, but in the city center area, you have sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6 all cluttered around, very close to each other, and none of them really making any sense, and none of them being maintained very well. So we felt that when the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan team came and there were about 60 parameters, 18 parameters against which they ranked it, and of course the ranking was very poor. 60% of them were under very poor category, and it had to do with water, electricity, cleanliness, accessible hours of operation, caretaker facilities, and whatnot. And accessibility for the physically handicapped and elderly and all that was pretty much a distant dream. That didn't even feature in the kind of toilets that were being provided. And at that time, I remember the municipal corporation had taken up 28 community public toilets for refurbishment, and they wanted our opinion as to whether it was worthwhile. They had already gone through the sanctioning process of the budget, and then out of those 28, we said required was, yes, 14 were required, but not required was 14, which meant a saving of 2.24 crores, because we were able to show them that the ones which did not require a refurbishment were actually going to be catering to communities which were around, slum communities, and it would have been cheaper to go to every family and give them a home toilet instead of refurbishing this, and then it becomes like a recurring cost, because you need to keep on refurbishing it every couple of years or a few months, and they really agreed with the findings of it. So I just thought that Do we have time, Smita, for a short film at the end of, I just wanted to sort of close it with a short film, which is about 6 minutes. Do you think we have time
yes.
for it, or shall I just?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
one of the things that I wanted to just flag over here was that while we are doing all these surveys, while we are doing this data, and also looking at all the public toilet, we realized that there are no locational addresses for any of these. If you go into a slum, it's horrific because sometimes thousands and thousands of families are living in one slum. And if you ask the address, it's just the name of the slum, the survey number, whatever, and that's it. So you have thousands of families who share just one address. If you need to navigate to a particular house, there's just no way because nobody knows how to reach that place. So we've started something very interesting with Google more recently. We are doing plus codes, which is a digital address that you give, which can be inputted on Google Maps, and you can actually reach the doorstep of that particular family. But what we did was we went a step ahead and we made sure that every manhole, every chamber, every community toilet block got a plus code. So that, when they, typically in slum, you have issues around something or the other breaking down. It can be a door in a public toilet or a community toilet. It can be an overflowing chamber. And you want somebody from the ward to come and attend to it. So that kind of a code would help, to very specifically pinpoint to the ward sanitary inspector or whoever needs to be contacted that please come to this particular chamber, and that needs to be addressed. So this is the plus code experiment that we started with Google about a year ago, and we've already given 40,000 plus codes. And just this year, Deutsche Welle, which is a very well-known German channel, they did a short film which actually covers not just the plus code, but it also covers the sanitation efforts that we put into the city of Kolhapur. I thought it'd be interesting for you because then you will get to see both aspects of the work and what difference it makes in people's lives. So let me just check whether I can, yeah. The sound is there?
Ma'am, the sound is not there.
Not there? Okay, let me just check whether having my thing would help.
Kolhapur in Western India.
It's audible now.
Like in most Indian cities, many inhabitants live in slums. Haphazard settlements, usually excluded from urban planning policies. Can you hear it now? Kolhapur in Western India.
No, ma'am.
Location of the place.
Yeah, it's fine now.
It's a blessing from Bhagyashree Kalyankar. She runs an electronics. Sorry, I just wanted to check whether the sound was audible now.
Yes, ma'am, it's audible.
Yes, ma'am, it's audible.
Hello? Shruti?
Yes, ma'am,
it's
yes, ma'am, it's
audible.
audible.
Hello? Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am, you're audible.
Okay, should I start playing the film then?
Yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am.
Kolhapur in Western India, home to nearly 4 million people. Like in most Indian cities, many inhabitants live in slums. Haphazard settlements, usually excluded from urban planning policies. and difficult to navigate. Until recently, finding an exact location was impossible. Over 1,700 families live here. It's a legal settlement, but no one has an individual address. Today, however, this pizza delivery is being made right up to a doorstep. And it's thanks to this unique number, a Google Plus code based on the latitudinal and longitudinal location of a place. It's a blessing for Bhagyashri Kalyankar. She runs an electronics store next door and often needs to order supplies online. She now uses a plus code as an address on Google Maps and says the material is delivered right to her home.
This is the code I've been given for the accurate location. Earlier, if someone wanted to come and deliver to our house, or if a relative was visiting, he had to call us, and we had to guide him on the phone using landmarks like rickshaw stands or nearby shops. We had to sometimes go and pick him up. Now I have none of those hassles.
The plus codes are the work of Pratima Joshi and her team. The architect and founder of the non-governmental organization Shelter Associates has been using data to improve conditions in shanty towns. They work across 7 cities in the state of Maharashtra. The digital address is their most recent initiative, for which they've partnered with Google. They put up the slum map on a board just outside the settlement.
Every house, now you see there's a location address that we have put out. It's going to be a game changer because now there will be an address for every house, which is never the case in a slum. You want to get an ambulance, there's an emergency, there's a fire outbreak, anything. You can leverage plus code and make sure that you get that service at your doorstep.
Pratima's team have mapped and marked this whole slum, the largest in the city of Kolhapur. But not everyone understands the initiative. This man says he has no idea what the board with the number is meant for. He doesn't own a smartphone and has never heard of Google. That's the reason Pratima's team conduct regular information sessions, explaining what plus codes are and what they can be used for. For example, getting their cooking gas cylinders delivered to their doorsteps every month. The concept is still new, but many young residents here have smartphones and already use Google Maps. Individual addresses could help residents open bank accounts and access postal services more easily in the future. The technology may look simple, but creating the plus codes is far from easy. 230 kilometers away in the city of Pune, a team of data analysts work at the NGO's main office. They're specialized in using a geographic information system, so-called GIS mapping. Led by Pratima, they use satellite images as well as field mapping to generate as accurate a digital address as possible, a tricky task in a slum.
What you see is just the roof, right? You don't know what's happening under the roof. And you might think this is one house, and then when you go on the ground, you realize that, oh my God, there are actually 3 houses under that roof. So you cannot just use a satellite image for digitizing a slum. There is absolutely no substitute for field visits and field mapping.
The architect says the same method is also used to map infrastructure in the slums, from public toilets, manholes, drain networks, to water standposts and garbage bins. All the data is on the website.
This is very useful even for an administrator. You're just sitting at their desk. If they can just open up these maps and then they can see, okay, where are the networks that we've already laid? The water department head can just literally go through every settlement and see what is the outreach of water in that particular settlement. So this is the way it aids them in planning. For me, data is the foundation. It's the real spine of anything that you undertake. The rest of it falls in place if that is in place.
The data has also allowed Pratima's team to make a big push into sanitation. In most slums, the only option for residents to relieve themselves are community toilets like these, which often lack running water, involve long waiting times, and pose health hazards because of unsanitary conditions. Pratima's focus is on individual toilets. In this settlement in Kolhapur, the team found through their mapping that there was a shortage of drain networks. The data pinpointed the exact location of a few existing lines that connected to the city's drain network, making it easier for municipal authorities to know where to lay the new sewage lines. That is essential for toilets to be built.
I've been involved in this project doing sanitation. And
Vijay Patil works for the city's sanitation department. He says the data provided by Pratima's group has helped Kolhapur improve services and cut rates of open defecation.
The data is very important in any type of project. If you know the exact location of manhole, exact location of where the line is connected to the main line, where are the chambers located, then it is very useful to clean the drainage lines very easily. They have given ready-made data to us, and due to this, we are first in Maharashtra for open defecation free city.
The laying of drain networks has kicked off a toilet building spree, creating jobs for masons and laborers. The NGO provides the building material. Families who can afford it pay for the construction. Sarika Chopade recently got her own toilet built for the first time and says it's given her a feeling of safety and privacy.
I have a teenage daughter, and using the community toilet in the slum was dangerous, especially at night. Men used to hang around and harass us. With drains being laid, we decided to build a toilet in our own home.
Across Kolhapur, Pratima's team have facilitated the construction of close to 3,800 individual toilets to date. The mapping technology has gone a long way towards creating a safer and cleaner environment. For residents, it means having a more livable slum.
Okay.
Yes.
I just hope all of you have been able to hear the audio part of it. I'm happy to take questions if there are any.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for giving us a brief reference about the existing condition and then its solution also. Like, I'm sure your contribution to the society and work has really inspired us in some way, like starting from collecting the data and then bringing it on the public domain, then new drainage lines at some points, and even maintaining the volunteers. I think that might be challenging at first, right? Like convincing the volunteers to be a part of it. Like, was that challenging? And how you catered to it?
It is challenging because when you start working with the communities, on the first day, they're always going to view you a little suspiciously as to why these people have come. I mean, of course, we don't enter a community without giving them a background. But it takes a little time for people to understand. And once they understand what is being done and how it is going to make a sort of a qualitative difference in their life, we do get people coming forward and volunteering their time. So it's a slightly slow process, but it's well worth investing in it, because when you leave the community, because you're not going to be there forever, at least you have left behind a whole bunch of empowered volunteers who know how to whose understanding of the issue has also tremendously risen, and who now are able to sort of understand how to tackle and deal with problems that may arise in their settlement over other issues also.
So that might happen. So students, do you have any questions? Or even faculties can ask.
So if I if I may say something, Pratima, so, first of all, thank you very much, for accepting our invitation and taking us through this journey of your NGO, but at the same time, giving us a focused information actually on our own area, the Panvel area. And I must say that that although many of us we live and work here, a lot of these things we were not aware of, until we until we first looked at your website, and then again, hearing you in person, right? So that's really amazing, and it definitely inspires us also, to get involved in some or the other way with the municipal corporation.
Yes. Well, you're not the only one, but you'll be surprised how many people across cities, even in Pune, many of them are not aware of the gravity of the situation, or even are not on top of the numbers when it comes to the slum communities, or the problems that, or the immediate slums around their own place of stay. So yes, I think this data will be very interesting. I think if people are interested to know which is the nearest slum to where I live, there's something that you can check out on our maps.
Uh,
Hello,
None of the
ma'am.
students have any queries? Oh, good. Yes. Neha?
Ma'am, I'm Siddhi Chavan, student. The entire session was so insightful and impressive, inspiring, because whenever someone thinks about changing something about the situation in slums and everything, so everyone, like even I thought about something like we change the entire thing, like we redevelop everything and everything. But then the approach that you and your organization did, like improving the existing conditions by giving the uh, important major aspects highlight. So that was a very inspiring thing to know about. And my question was, what would be the next thing that should be looked at in developing the sanitation situation? Like when everyone, if there is a home, at every home there is a toilet given, provided, then what would be the next step according to
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. The whole idea is to try and reach out to maximum number of people with a home toilet. Sometimes, even within a slum, about 15-20% families get left out. They get left out because there could be technical reasons. Maybe, the drainage network cannot be laid there because of the slopes not matching. Or sometimes the houses are located in such a strange ways, or the lanes are so narrow that it's absolutely not possible to lay a drainage line there. So the idea is that one should try and exhaust all the possibilities that are there in terms of delivering a home toilet. And when you do that, you also need to take a comprehensive kind of a view of the sanitation in the settlement, vis-a-vis community toilet blocks, solid waste management. Because when we've done our mobilization efforts, we've also talked about solid waste management, because there's a high incidence of throwing garbage into networks, the gutters or drainage networks, and that can lead to choking up the systems. In a way, doing that has worked, because now people, because there's sewage is being let out into that, they're very scared that it'll back up into their own homes. So a lot of people are very conscious about it now. Community toilet blocks also, in terms of maintenance, it's important that the cities also now, since the pressures have reduced, try and make sure that those who cannot take a toilet have access to a reasonably well maintained community sanitation, especially now in terms of the COVID situation, where community toilet blocks become a hotspot for all kinds of infections. It became important that and we have worked with in Navi Mumbai and Kolhapur, giving them pedal push hand wash stations, or making sure that you have the elbow operated taps, social distancing, wearing a mask. I mean, we've invested just in about everything to make sure that community toilets are safe to use whenever they have to be used. So ideal situation, of course, is if everybody can have a toilet, then it completely reduces the burden on the city also to maintain community toilets. In the city of Pune, every year they would allocate close to 30 crore rupees on just maintenance and refurbishments of the community toilets and public toilets. It's a huge amount of money, and it's a recurring expense. So wherever the people started taking home toilets, and when you had a critical mass like 70-80% of the families having access to a home toilet, it just completely reduced their burden of maintenance. And so it was a welcome, it was welcomed by not just the administrators, but even the councillors. So this is where I feel that whenever you take up something, you need to first study the situation very well on the ground. You need to understand what are the aspirations of the people, and sort of look at a holistic view, take a holistic view of what would work there, well there, taking everybody on board. So, in some slums, the community toilet blocks, which were in large numbers, some of them became redundant. So then we told the local ward office, why don't you convert them into area resource centers? Because the community hardly has, spaces that they can call their own, where they can have activities, where other skills can be nurtured. If you're talking about skilling people, you need a place even for starting such an activity, right? So these are things that, are suggestions that we've been constantly making to urban local bodies, and we hope that at some point they will be taken seriously. So I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, and also in your journey, there would be some point where the major issues, like even if we provided a toilet in each house, then to maintain it, to use it, there must be a supply for water and everything. So you must have started from giving their water supply, a constant water supply.
So I'm glad you asked that question, because as I said, we do data first, right? So every family, we gather basic set of data, which is around, do you have water? Do you have a toilet? What kind of access to water do you have? Do you have electricity? What kind of solid waste management is in place? So if there is no water, then you cannot give toilets, obviously. In Navi Mumbai, which is such a rich municipal corporation, even the municipal commissioner was stunned when he found that their water situation was not even comparable to what Kolhapur had or Pune had or some of these cities had, because most people were using shared water connections, like common water stand posts. So when the data showed that, first you need to put water in place. Every house should have access to water if you're going to give them a toilet. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan otherwise won't work. So then they came out with a resolution that wherever we were giving home toilet, it would also go with water connection. So we would then submit a list of houses which were interested in taking a toilet, and the municipal corporation then went ahead and made sure that they got individual home water supply. So yes, we need to assess that situation on the ground before we go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
So Pratima, in this connection, I want to ask you, how do you navigate the legal issues, around tenure of the houses, etc. How is that situation? Because sometimes the slums are legalized, sometimes they are not, or there is somewhere in between kind of a state. So, so when the house itself is a kind of a question mark, then a household toilet, how does it fit within that scenario? Is my question.
Yes, that is a question which a lot of people have asked me, and it's a very fair question. But the good news is that the government of India, when they launched Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, they unbundled services from security of tenure. They said, and which is the right thing to do, because just because they don't have a secure tenure, you can't deprive them of these essential services, because if they are going to be defecating in the open, it's going to be a threat to the entire neighborhood and ultimately the city at large, right? So they said that because you have access to a home toilet doesn't mean that you have a secure tenure. So they unbundled it. And so we have been able to reach out to people, whether they've authorized slums or unauthorized, non-recognized slums, or as you said, some in between kind of legalities. All slums are illegally out there. There's no legality as such to any slum, in certain GRs which say that, like when you do housing, they say that till 2011, if you've been staying there and if you have proof to furnish, then you will be considered for any kind of a rehabilitation program that will be undertaken. So it's just cutoff dates which kind of gives them that the rights to at least have access to certain amenities. But having said that, this was a good move by the government of India. They unbundled it. So we have not run into issues with respect to who we can give a toilet and whom we cannot. There have been sporadic cases where a municipal commissioner might say that there was one of the municipal commissioners of Navi Mumbai who refused to give toilet facilities to families who had come after 2001. So you had a peculiar situation in a settlement where there were people who were there prior to 2001 and people who were there after 2001, and we were forced to only pick on those families who were there prior to 2001. But the moment the municipal commissioner moved out and somebody else came in, we discussed with them, and then it's in the subsequent phases we included everyone, because the whole idea is that you don't want anyone to be defecating in the open. If that is the goal, you want to stop open defecation, period, stop. Then you cannot have these rules dictating who can be a beneficiary and who cannot be a beneficiary. It just defeats the purpose of that vision, no?
True. Very true.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Kavita Pradhan. I'm a faculty here. Ma'am, it is really impressive to see your entire journey and what you have achieved here in these years, and the way you have transformed lives of so many, and also it was very impressive to see your meticulous efforts of creating data of the existing situation and how it really helped in providing resolution, which are much needed for the society and these people as well, the underprivileged sector of the society. I mean, it's not really a question, but I'm sure you must be facing many difficulties in getting the toilets creation in their homes, which must be really small as it is, right? Like the housing part also must be very small. So here now we insert toilets in each of their house. That also must be requiring a lot of efforts and doing this. So, I mean, I'm sure like you have enough, or how do you go about like getting enough help or hands for doing this?
Well, it's the survey and the data which actually came as a surprise revelation to most cities. You know, one of the questions that we asked people when we were capturing basic data is that, would you like a toilet at home? And without exception, across all the 7 cities that we worked in, over 70% families said, yes, we want a toilet at home. I think the issue really was not of demand. The issue really was that the municipal corporations, you know, completely miscalculated the priority of toilets in people's lives. They underestimated. That's based on surely their perception, where they thought if the houses are so small, where is there a place for a toilet? And this one thought that was so deeply engraved, I think, in their psyche, that they only could come out with one common solution across cities, which was a community toilet block. They never went to the people and asked them, do you want a toilet at home? You can't underestimate the need for something as basic as that. And you will be surprised that in houses which are less than 100 square feet, also they've prioritized a small toilet. I've known so many families where, they have been prioritized by men because they don't want their young daughter, they don't want to be going out and being, subjected to any kind of harassment or fear of using community or public spaces where you need to defecate in the open. So this was a total miscalculation on the part of the city's management. I remember very early on when in Pune, we ran into the same issue with the municipal commissioner here. He said, no, but who will take a toilet at home? It's just not possible. So I said, okay, then you have to come. We are going to be inaugurating a 1,000th home toilet in one of the slums in Pune, and I want you to be the chief guest. And he readily came. And we took him across a few homes and showed him, especially the tiny ones where they had prioritized the toilet. That was a game changer for us, because Pune subsequently ranked first, not just in the state, but in the entire country, with a target of 46,500 toilets, home toilets, that they have been able to reach out to the slum dwellers. This was a game changer. And then when he saw that people really not just took a toilet, but maintained it very well. See, when it's yours, then you will take care of it, because it's in your house. It's probably right next to the kitchen. Because if you have a small house, there's just one room and a toilet in that room. It's a multi-purpose room. So you do keep it very clean. In fact, people take a lot of pride in the toilet, because they've invested also a lot of their energies in the finishes. And most of those guys come to houses like yours and mine to work, no? So they are aspirational. They've seen the nice finishes in the toilets in our home. So when they go back, they want those kind of finishes in their homes.
Wow.
It's not natural. They may not go for branded tiles. They'll go for non-branded ones, which are cheap, and they still go ahead. So they ended up, contributing far more than just the cost of construction. A lot of them invested even in tiles, which they took right up to the ceiling. They took so much pride. I know I've taken a donor to visit a project which they had funded 8 years prior to his visit. I said, you must come and visit this. It was in Sangli. After 8 years, he visited those toilets, and he was stunned to see how well maintained they were. So the thing is that the demand was captured. And when you have a proactive, inclusive kind of an approach, it makes an impact. People do look after their things.
Right.
And
I hope it
we've
also
done a
starts
third party.
Yeah. No, I was just saying that I hope it also starts a culture of cleanliness as well, which is much needed for our society.
No, the people are clean. You will find that in most houses in slum, their homes are extremely clean, irrespective of how filthy the outside is. The homes are very clean. Everything in the house is very nicely maintained. Actually, a third-party impact assessment that was done by the Gokhale Institute on our one home, one toilet model, which is also on our website. 93% families are using their toilets. They did a sampling of 400 families across a few cities. And they did a pre and a post over a period of 1.5 years. And they have reported 93% were using their toilet, and they were very well maintained.
That's really amazing.
See, but the culture of, cleanliness is not just with slum dwellers, it's with you and me also, no?
Right.
I've seen so many well-to-do people throwing garbage out of their cars as they're going, or spitting out. Do you think it's the slum dwellers who are all the time to be blamed? It's you and I who are also equally culpable. And
much more, maybe much more.
Maybe much more. Maybe
Yes.
sometimes it's very disheartening to see people traveling in such luxurious cars and then suddenly, spitting out or throwing something out of their car. It's very annoying and very disheartening.
Right.
Yeah.
Jinu Kurian is raising a hand. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask?
Yeah. So good evening, and thank you for this wonderful presentation. An aspect that one can learn from your work is how, if we step out of the dominant modes of architectural practice, there are these alternative modes of engagement, which are not just socially relevant, but whose sphere of influence is fairly large, and thus making the impact of your work almost exponential. So my question is, if there are any best practices or SOPs that you have developed over the years, which can be adopted by professional groups or institutions like us, if we want to engage with our immediate context, or if there is a way one can partner with your organization to contribute to the work. In this,
actually,
hopefully,
this
we can learn and build on the strong foundations that you already have.
That would be so wonderful if you actually did take that, make that effort, because we realize one thing is that there aren't too many players in the sanitation sector or even the housing sector for that matter. And I think architects have a very big role to play. And it'll be fantastic if architects can come into the social sector in a big way. That's my appeal to all of you who are on this session today. But having said that, yes, we were aware that shelter cannot replicate itself everywhere. So we came out with a whole toolkit. It's like a how-to manual. We've come out with come out with three parts of that toolkit. One is how do you do data? So it's a practical how-to manual. How do you mobilize communities? And how do you actually deliver the toilet to a house? So it's there on our website. We've also put it out in the website in the hope that somebody will take the efforts to read it, and within their context, if they can replicate it or scale it, we would be delighted. And if there's any help that is required, in terms of tweaking it or understanding it better, we are always happy to clarify doubts or whatever. See, you might need to tweak it to your context. For instance, I mean, there's no rocket science to you. I mean, all of us understand and accept that you need data to be in place before you find a solution, right? How do you do that data is what we put out. You need to get people on board. Again, there is nothing very um, difficult to digest about it. And if you have everybody's participation, you're almost halfway through to a successful project. And a cost sharing model makes ample sense to have a buy-in, financial buy-in from every stakeholder so that bonding is there with the project. So basically, these are very, very sort of commonplace, basic kind of things that we have honed and documented very, very aggressively so that it becomes available to everyone and all. So please do go through our toolkit. We've gone into a lot of details about, when we are doing a toilet, facilitating a toilet, we do agreements with every family, which is in place between us and that family as to what they can use that material for, how much material will be delivered to them, what is the time span within which they are expected to construct the toilet. So there are lots of do's and don'ts also there, terms and conditions, and even that we have put out in that toolkit. If somebody wants to use that as a template and take it forward, and maybe tweak it to your own condition. So I'll be very happy if you do require any kind of help on that in understanding something, do feel free to contact us.
Right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hello, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Ma'am, it was, I'm faculty from PiCA. So it was a very interesting lecture. So one thing I want to share with you all that when we actually did survey in Tamil Nadu, which is in which is Uslampatti, as one of the taluka mandal. So we had seen that they have got the toilets under Swachh Bharat mission, but when we have surveyed, went to their home, have surveyed regarding the toilet which they have inside their houses. So they have their toilets inside their homes with the septic tank, but they don't have the water facilities available inside their houses. So we asked them that where do you go to take water? So they said that we have around 100 meter there is one well, so we take water from there. So it was very much gap in understanding by the municipal corporation regarding studying the water and then providing the toilet in their houses. So I think as you have started taking initiative of providing the toilet with the proper sanitation and the water sources. So I think if many of the cities can take this approach and then start looking at all these aspects of looking sanitation and the water supply, I think this would be very helpful for the people who don't understand what is sanitation, how does the water system work inside their toilets and the buildings.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think there's a lot of learning for every city in this. But I must also say at the same time that every city has participated wherever we work, that is very wholeheartedly, because there was a huge buy-in for the model. And that's why I take a lot of pride in this project, because it has been a hugely successful project across the cities, because everybody's contributed. I mean, that satisfaction, I think, wouldn't have been as much if we had run with that, with the model, and we had put in all the money and we had done all the work. Okay, yes, people would have had the toilets and probably they would still be working. But I think that there's immense satisfaction that the urban local bodies actually accepted it. They have invested in it. People have invested in it. The donors have invested in a very big way. I want to say at this point that we did not raise funds through Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. We raised all our funds from corporate donors who have nurtured cities, year after year with us. So in Kolhapur, we had just one donor for 6 years. They nurtured it. They had full faith. They were very happy with the project. And over 6 years, we took it from whatever 26% to 56 or 57%, whatever was the figure, which that was the swing. So everybody's, wholehearted support in this process, I think, has been the most satisfying, because there's a sense of ownership. And you're right, every city needs to learn. Every city first needs to understand that they should be holding this data. Unfortunately, no city is still holding that data. They're not holding data of slums, and that's why you find all these problems are happening. If they had that data in place, then they would take, come up with solutions which are logical and which are practical on the ground.
Yes. And also, I think the municipality should contact with the non-organizing government, so that they understand that what are the gap which is available inside our society or the community, so that they get to know that gaps, and then we can work on it.
I agree with you.
Yes.
Hello, ma'am. Which city would you next focus on?
All right. That's very difficult for me to predict, though I would like to say that we are toying with the idea of stepping out of Maharashtra now, because we didn't want to scatter ourselves, or lay ourselves very thin and then not do any sort of satisfying work. We wanted to deep dive. So 7 cities, I think, has not been such a bad idea. Over the last 7 years, we've done enough deep diving. We've made enough of an impact. Now we feel we are ready to take on a city maybe outside the state. Whenever the first opportunity presents itself, I think we'll take it. So we certainly would like to now go beyond Maharashtra. So we'll have to wait and watch and see what comes our way.
Right. Yeah, and we really wish you all the power and all the best luck for that. But I want to know if it is okay. I want to kind of steer the conversation towards this competition that we have announced. And again, since we are asking the students of architecture who are studying in colleges in Navi Mumbai and Panvel area to select a slum community in these locations and propose a community toilet or community sanitation solution. And it's the brief is open-ended, because they are actually supposed to include innovations in the way they even form their design brief, and then go ahead and create an architectural design solution for the same. So in that context, and since we have heard you now, and you have told us very persuasively that the focus should now be on home toilets rather than on community toilet blocks. So my question again, as somebody who wrote the brief for the competition, that have we kind of missed out on the bus? Like, are we kind of going behind the times and not keeping with the times? And is it relevant at this stage to ask the students to focus on community sanitation as we have done. So what would you say about that?
Smita, I think you're still fairly on track because, as I said even earlier, it's not always possible to do 100% coverage of home toilets. There is always a certain percentage which gets left out, right? And I think it's important that that percentage which gets left out also has access to safe sanitation and a system which works well in terms of maintenance. I think it's well worth exploring. But when people choose their communities, then they should deep dive. It should not be just surface skimming. I think it's important that they get the profile of that community, well researched, and understand the nuances before they get into something like this. Because there is still a need for community toilets. There are still people who are going to be using them. And we now need to make sure that with the pandemic, how much safer can you make them? And in a community, supposing, like as I said earlier, if you do a study and you find that there were 3 community toilet blocks, and now with the home toilets percentage, having increased, they probably can do one of the models that we suggested, which has not really taken off, but I think that's the way to go, is that if you can bring down the ratio of users to say 1 seat to 3 families or max 4 families, you can actually divide and distribute those seats between those 4 families who have their lock and keys, and they take the maintenance effort. And that way you ensure that you really maintain, because then when 4 families, our chawls in Mumbai, even today in the chawls, you'll find that most families are sharing a toilet and they're keeping it clean. There's a lock and key. I mean, this was always common practice in chawl, and they're doing pretty well with that system. I see no reason why that cannot be replicated in a community toilet block. How do you get communities enthused, the ones who are using it, to maintain it? That would require some thinking. Is there, how do you building certain safety features? How do you building certain features which make it more accessible for the handicapped people? There's immense that you can do, and please go all out and do it. But I mean, don't focus on just the technology aspect of it. I've got some fancy technology going with water recycling and solar power, and all that is important. I'm not denying it's important, but the thing of core importance is who is going to be taking responsibility for it, and who is going to be maintaining it, and how are you going to get that going, the maintenance also. Are you going to keep running to the ward office and saying, "Ye nal nahi chal raha hai, wo pan put gaya hai, so you kindly come"? They're not going to do it. Once they give you a toilet, they expect you to do it, right? They don't have unlimited budgets either. So I think an aware citizenry is also something that goes along with the community toilet. Because see, it's not a public toilet. Your focus is community toilet. And to that extent, it's easier to manage it, because in a public toilet, it can be just anyone using it. In a community toilet, we've done very successful community toilets in cities like Pune and Sangli in the past, where people have taken complete control and charge of their toilets. In fact, we had some of them even connected to biogas, and the gas was used by a few families, and they paid for the gas that they used. So there was some kind of an income that was generated, which went back into the maintenance kitty of that community. So I think as students who are on this project, let them just go all out and let their imaginations fly. I don't want you to see, this project is not going to happen on the ground. If it does, wonderful. But while you're still doing it on paper, at least let your imagination fly. See how best you can work on these various aspects which go into a successful community toilet block. I still think it's very relevant. I don't think you should change that at all.
Right. Yeah, that's very inspiring, and I hope that all the registered participants have heard Pratima Joshi carefully here. I think there were lots of clues and lots of tips as to how to go about this competition in this brief explanation that she just now gave. And yeah, we are excited to see what kind of work we receive as part of that.
Oh,
Sure.
right. Ma'am, there are some questions in the chat box. Like, should we go through it?
Yeah, why don't you do that? Yes.
Yeah. So, ma'am, first is from Neha, ma'am. Like, she wanted to know, like, she would like to hear any experience for slum rehabilitation if you had during
Yes.
your time. Yeah.
So, Neha, what I would do, because of paucity of time here, we have put out some very good videos of our housing projects that we've done in Pune and Sangli Miraj on our website. If you go under the housing section, you'll see these films. I would certainly invite you to take a look at the citywide inclusive housing for the urban poor, which was a citywide effort that we put in the city of Sangli Miraj. It was a great project, which we had done under the Jawaharlal Nehru Urban Renewal Mission. Do take a look at that, because that will give you a holistic idea of how we go about even housing with a data-driven approach. And you will see a film on the second project that we did in Pune, which was the rehabilitation of relocation of Kamgar Puta slum. We had Yashna make a film on that. So there is a whole body of information available, which I'm sure you will find interesting. So do go through that.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, then next we have Utkarsha from HOC College. So she mentions, as we saw, you have proposed a toilet block to every house, which in real would have been difficult to lay out according to the space or either ventilation. So how you manage the CTBs and the maintaining the cultural image of the toilet? And then again, in this, how actual scope of does the architectural intervention would give in such compact spaces?
Yes, I think I've already discussed this at length, but
Yeah.
I think the last part of it is nice, because we do have architects who work full time for us, and we get a lot of volunteers who come across the globe. Architects who volunteer with us. So yes, it's very interesting. To be very honest, I find that families are very ingenious themselves. Very ingeniously, they've managed to fit in the toilet. That is very, very appropriate within their context. So they didn't want a ready-made prefab toilet. They all wanted customized toilet. They all had a good idea of what would change within their house if they had to put in a toilet. And wherever they needed some kind of a help, our architects provided that. So we thought, it's good for people to let, sort of get into it and imagine and work with their spaces without coming in as architects and shoving something down their throat. That was not the idea. And wherever they came with certain solutions, and if there was a slightly better option to that, we would suggest it. If they took it, great. If they felt no, wouldn't work for them, we let it be. So I think as architects, I think there needs to be a certain humility where you need to give the other person also equal importance in taking decisions regarding their own homes and their own sanitation. So we have, as architects, contributed wherever people asked for help.
Okay.
And I think I feel that regarding again Neha's question and Shelter Associates work in the housing sector also, because I think today, since we are celebrating the World Toilet Day, the focus of her talk was on sanitation, but some fabulous work that they have done in the housing sector, again for the informal settlements and slums, is also quite amazing. And it means that we must invite her once again, and since Pune is not very far from Panvel, and hopefully in person, maybe we can have her in the college. And we
certainly.
can
It would be an absolute pleasure to meet you all in person. And I hope next year things ease out a bit and that becomes a possibility.
Correct.
Do you have any more questions?
Ma'am, I'm Roshni Tiwari from second year.
Yes,
I wanted to know how was your experience while going from one home, one toilet to public toilets?
I mean, in a way, they were completely different. So, public toilets, as I said right at the outset, we did it more as a favor to the municipal corporation because it was not there within our agenda and not on our radar either. We wanted them to get they wanted to have a good understanding of the situation of their public toilets and how they could go about, strengthening this whole public infrastructure part of it. So we played our bit in terms of providing very good sound data for them to really take informed decisions. We're really not into the space of public toilets, though I completely agree that there's a huge need for it and there's a huge paucity of that amenity. And somebody needs to take it up really very actively. And I know there have been certain efforts to really come out with very well thought out public toilets, but they're still far few and in between. I hope that over the years there'll be many more such good solutions that can, workable solutions that come out that come out from various cities for the public.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do we have any more questions? Okay, I guess, ma'am, everyone got clarity from the session which you had. Yeah. Ma'am, we would really thank you for sharing your experiences with us. And while designing, especially for this competition, we'll put an extra effort to look into the data regarding.
Please do.
Yeah, we'll surely do that. On the behalf of the entire institute, I would like to thank you, ma'am, as well as the members of SIBC and Shelter Associates for joining us today on this occasion. A big thank you to our principal, ma'am, Dr. Sudhya Mahankar, Smita, ma'am, Kavita, ma'am, and Aditya, sir, for their guidance and providing constant encouragement. I would also like to thank all the faculty members and student council and the students for being with us for this evening. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you all and have a great weekend.
Thanks a lot. All of you have a great weekend too. Bye-bye. Bye, Smita. We'll keep in touch.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye, ma'am.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Bye.